Okay, people. Welcome to this session. The topic that we are going to cover today is importance of mocks and when to start attempting them. So there are certain bits and pieces that you should be aware of. I will try my level best to answer everything to the best of my ability, whatever little knowledge and experience I have. I will try to pass that on in the limited time that we have available. And any questions or any follow-ups that you have, there is going to be a time I allocate for it. Usually the way I prefer handling it is, if you have a question, raise your hand at that time. Hopefully everyone knows how to raise your hand. You raise your hand at that time, and then as in when I'm done with my current thought, I will come to you. I will answer whatever you have. So, small little introduction. I have been teaching for more than 13 years now. I'm a mentor at Anastasia Academy, and I'm a commerce graduate. That is all you need to know about me. Let us move forward. The way I like starting my meetings, any meeting of this nature is first, is there any specific question you expect to be answered today? If there are any specific questions that you have in your mind, please go ahead, list them out, and to my abilities level, I'll try to answer them. If it does not get answered at the end of the session, I'll speak on it separately. Are there any specific questions that you're seeking answers to, people? Of course, the topic is there. Even within that topic, if you feel there is something very specific that you need to know, you can go ahead and ask. Any specific questions that you're seeking answers to? What do you think we are going to cover today? This is the third meeting that is happening under the aegis of Inside IM. And the third time I'm leaving this question open. Always I invite inputs. Sadly, mock strategy. Mock strategy, how to analyze mocks and mock strategy. There are future sessions scheduled and total mocks we scheduled. Okay, I'll list it out. Mock strategy and how to analyze mocks. Third one is count of mocks. Wonderful. Sources and durations. I understand sources. I don't really understand what we mean by durations. And for the fifth one, how to go about handling DILR section well. Okay. I don't know if you're aware, DILR section handling. Say, I can give you a brief overview of everything that you're seeking within this list, but uh, given that today's key topic, the primary topic that we are covering, it is the importance of mocks and when to start attending them. Ideally, with Inside IM, I will have such sessions every 2 weeks. This is something I have planned for future. This is something I have planned for future, not right now. Not right now, because again, I please don't send direct messages. Please send messages in the meeting group chat only. Now, here, I've also, there is one more input that has been sent over, which is how to attempt. So I'm just clarifying your expectations of what this is something for a future section. Not only how to attempt, there will also be a live attempt happening for different sections within these sessions itself. For today's, and again, DILR section handling, there is going to be a separate session on VARC handling and DILR handling and QA handling. All of that is planned for the future. All of that is planned for the future. Not that I will not be speaking on them, but right now, doing justice to that discussion in the limited amount of time that we have would not be fair. So, is it possible to crack it in 4 to 5 months? The short answer is yes. The more nuanced answer is it is unlikely unless you have prepared for it significantly in the past. This I'm definitely going to cover. Sources, I'm definitely going to cover. Duration, not so much. I don't really understand what the duration part of it is. I will ask later on. I have no clue. This is under the aegis of Inside I'm, so those people would know Nikhil. You would have to talk to them. Okay. My agenda, what I'm going to talk of today is going to be what exactly are mocks and sectionals, purpose of mocks, what factors to be careful at the time of test takings, the count of mocks and sectionals to take, when to start, and the corrective action as a response to mocks performance. So all of this is what I'm planning to cover. At the end, I will, if we have time left, I will also go through the other questions or whatever other things were talked of in this list. But this is what I am planning to cover today based on the topic that you were given. Okay, let's go. What exactly are mocks? Uh, what exactly are mocks? Mocks are simulated exams. Simulated exams, understand? The best, perhaps, the best reference I can give you for what mocks are is all of us have taken boards exams in our school days. You also had something called pre-boards. Mocks are exactly pre-boards. They are supposed to simulate the experience that you get in the board exams by giving you a taste and flavor of what kind of questions can be asked. You have to sit through the entire process. You have to write long answers. It gets checked. All of that happens. But they are, the keyword here is, they are simulated exams. They are not the end all be all. A very important factor that I will be harping on about throughout this session is going to be a very important factor that I'm going to be harping on throughout this session is going to be mocks are not an indication of what you will do in your exam right from the first test. Perhaps mocks performance towards the end of October, or towards the month of October and November are a fairer representation of what you will do in the actual exam. But let's say in the month of June or July or August or September, when you're simply fine-tuning your attempt methodologies, at that time, what you get in exams or what you get in mocks is simply going to be an indication of what your current preparation levels are. What I mean by that is, and let's say if you have a fever, if you put a thermometer in your mouth, it tells you what temperature you currently are at. It is not a cure. It is not a medicine for overcoming that fever that you have. It simply tells you where you are currently. They are simulated exam simply to tell you what your current levels or what your current preparation situation is like. Usually the mocks that you will take usually are prepared by experts, because these are experts, not because they are intelligent. These are experts more on account of experience. So let's say if you take a mock from Time or CL or IMS or whatever different institutes that you take it from, these people have dedicated content teams. They have, let's say, 10, 20 people working in different sections. Different questions go through different iterations and checks and everything. So these questions are good enough. Understand? While these are prepared by experts, they can never, ever, ever be a perfect representation of what the cat will throw at us. Because one huge challenge is cat has to give us one test in a year. The actual cat authorities have to give us one test in a year. So they can choose to venture towards the more difficult sides. They can choose to venture towards the easier side. They can venture towards, let's say, the moderate side. All of those things they can do. But when institutes have to prepare mocks, they have to ensure that they are covering the entire range. They cannot possibly be only making easy mocks. They cannot possibly be making only difficult mocks or only moderate mocks. So if you don't do a one-to-one mapping, let's say one mock has some very easy QA section, but last year's quant was so difficult, how can they give us an easy? We don't know what happens in the next year. In fact, one of the worst things that you can do is make predictions about what the paper is going to be like. Although that is one of the very popular YouTube video titles, what the most expected questions nonsense. But you have to be prepared for facing an easy paper. You have to be prepared for facing a moderate paper. You have to be prepared for facing a difficult paper, because whatever difficulty level you face, everybody else will also face that. Additionally, given that these are simulated exams, they are supposed to be a tool for further action. They are not supposed to be a cure-all. They are not supposed to be a panacea that whatever pains and illnesses you have. Let's say if your theory coverage is not done, just because you start taking mocks, it wouldn't be that you will start solving questions correctly and you will get your conceptual clarity clarified None of that would happen if the initial work has not been done. Very much like cricket, if you don't know how to get to the pitch of the ball and present a straight face, just because you're playing matches, your skill will not develop. You would need to put in the hard yards in the practice sessions. Only then in a match can you replicate it. And in a match, if you're not doing well, that gives you input for, okay, these are the kind of errors. My head is falling away. I am not getting to the pitch of the ball. I'm slashing on the offside when my control outside the offside is not that great. They give you what are the problems that you have. The work on it happens outside of box. Okay. The purpose of box, precise purpose of box, it gets you familiar with the exam pattern. When I mean familiar with the exam pattern, I mean, let's say for a lot of us, sitting down for 2 hours straight, sitting down for 2 hours straight with extreme concentration is not something we are accustomed to doing, especially in this modern day and age where attention spans for some reason have become insanely small. Sitting down for 2 hours and taking a test is going to be an eye opener for some of us who would have taken mock for the first time. It would have been an extremely different challenge to sit through the entire quant section, because usually by the time quant section rolls around, people are of the mind, finish this test, this has gone on for too long. And that is why you would also see a higher instance of careless errors being made in the QA section compared to the VA section. In VA section, when you get it wrong, you actually did not know. But in QA section, very often even when you do know the answer, even when you do know the process, you end up making silly errors. That is because sitting down for 2 hours is not something we are accustomed to. Additionally, when we say familiarity with the exam pattern, understand mocks is not only going to be CAT exams. It is also going to be NMAT exams. It is also going to be SNAP exams. It is also going to be ZAT exams and TIS exams and CMAT and whatever other tests you take. Familiarity with the exam pattern. Every exam has its own unique charm. Every exam has its own unique, different flavor that you have to go through. And for getting slightly accustomed to that unique flavor, mocks help you in identifying what sort of decision making is required. For instance, before this session, we were doing the vocabulary based quiz. Now, CAT does not ask you vocabulary based questions, and NMAT does ask you vocabulary based questions. But if you never take an NMAT mock, you will never realize that one of the areas you get tested on is vocabulary. Even within that, once you start taking a test, that particular question where we had, let's say, matching of word meanings, once you take mocks, you'll realize such question types exist. And there, even when you don't know the meaning of the word, there are mechanisms by which you can arrive at the answer. That is what is meant by introduction or familiarity with exam pattern. Second thing, assessment of your preparation level, what level you are currently at in terms of theory. See, for cracking that, there are two things required. First thing is the theory input. You need to be clear on what to, as in the concepts that are needed. And the second part is your test taking. Your initial few mocks, your first 2-3 mocks are simply going to be a test on what your theory levels are. Because usually when we are covering topics in class, when we're doing time and work, you're doing only time and work, only time and work, only time and work. So all the vagaries and all the twists and turns that are present in time and work, we are very, very accustomed to them. We are very, very focused on them. And solving time and work questions at that time is different. But when you're taking a mock, when you're taking a sectional, when you're taking a test outside of that realm, you do a question based on functions. Next question is on time and work. Next question is on, let's say, number systems. Next question is on some PNC mechanism. Your ability to switch between different thought setups and being able to adhere to the theoretical inputs that you have learned is going to get tested in marks. Additionally, your time management skills. See, when we are doing theory, at that time, hopefully, time is not a prerequisite that we are concerned with. As in, I have to solve this question in 3 minutes, I have to solve this question in 2 minutes, I have to solve this DILR set in 10 minutes. That is a nonsense approach when you're learning it for the first time. Because when you're learning it for the first time, at that time, understanding is more critical than speed. Speed is a skill that you build up at a later point of time when you have more confidence in your abilities. The best parallel that I can think of is when you're driving, when you learn to drive. I'm guessing most of us in this classroom did actually learn how to drive back in the day. So when you were driving initially, of course, you were not thinking of, I have to drive fast from this day forward. When you got more confidence in your driving abilities, you automatically picked up speed. That is what would happen with testing, and that is what would happen with exams as well. With time management skills, you'd start realizing, let's say for an RC, right now, when you're practicing, maybe with a question, if you're not sure, you go through, read the passage again, whether it is worthwhile to read the passage again, read that section again, or is it not worthwhile? All that numeric output would come through to you via mocks only. Then there is going to be performance analysis. What I mean by performance analysis is in terms of the marks that you get, in terms of percentile that you get, in terms of areas that you identify. Let's say arithmetic, I'm able to handle questions well, but when it comes to modern maths, I tend to make very silly errors. You start identifying what works for you, what doesn't work for you. Where is it that you can perhaps take a punt? Where is it that you cannot take a punt? Let's say in RCs, if you realize that even when you're unsure, 70% of the answers that you mark turn out to be correct, then that would give you the impetus for going ahead and marking all RC answers. But then there has to be an upper limit of trade-off. You will not mark RC answers without reading the text at all. You will read the text, and then if you're unsure, let's say you're like 70%, 80% unsure, you're reasonably confident, but not entirely confident, then should you be marking or not be marking? All of that comes through from all the performance analysis that you engage in after the mock taking that happens. Then there is going to be stress management. There are two portions of stress management. The first portion is, of course, when you're taking the test, at that time, are you able to move reasonably logically across the sections and solve whatever questions are coming in front of you? The second part of stress management is, far too often people forget the fact that mocks are simply simulated exams. They are not the actual exam. So when people get a good score, they become insanely confident. Oh, my preparation is going very well. I am doing very well. If they get a bad score, they become insanely emotional. My life is wasted. My entire year will go down the drain. Perhaps I should look for government exams. All sorts of wonderful ideas come to their head. At that time, these mocks give you a reality check and also test your ability to maintain composure in the face of the storm. You're not expected to be extremely emotional and responsive and reactive to the scores that you get. If you got a good score, you have a set of activities that you have to follow it up with. If you have a bad score, you have a set of activities you have to follow it up with. The subsequent part of a mock, regardless of you getting a great score or a bad score, is fairly similar. It is not that just because you got a good score for the next 2 weeks, you can choose not to study. There would still be areas for improvement. See, even when Virat Kohli has played so well all throughout his career, he has done so much, that does not translate into Virat Kohli does not have to practice anymore. He still has to go for nets, he still has to practice, he still has to maintain his diet. All those inputs have to be there for him to perform consistently. And finally, this is more for some of us may not be accustomed to studying on a computer. A lot of people I see, they like studying from hard copy books and hard copy pens and as in notebooks and everything, and that is wonderful. But then given that the exam is going to be conducted on a screen, right now, when you're doing it on a notebook, perhaps you can underline stuff in RC, you can highlight the portions that you've taken care of. But when you're doing it on a computer, you don't have that ability, you don't have that opportunity. So at that time, please ensure you have gone through enough computer tests that looking at the screen for an extended period of time is not a problem. Additionally, when you can't highlight stuff within it, at that time, are you able to interpret things and read things and carry forward information appropriately or not? Now, again, what factors to be careful of when you start your mock taking? What factors to be careful of? Understand the purpose. The purpose is for you to get better. The purpose is for you to identify what areas you can be better at. The purpose is not to make predictions about whether you're going to ace CAT or whether you're going to fail at CAT. The purpose is simply for you to get better from your current state to your final state. Even if you make minute changes, understand in this CAT prep journey, anyone who is repeating will perhaps perhaps agree with this idea. People, when they start off, they're extremely motivated. I will do this, I will do that, I will get 100 percentile, I will go to Ahmedabad. 2 months in, more than half of them have stopped studying altogether. Even 2 months further, uh, people who are continuing to study, people who are, a lot of them are like, there is no point in studying. I am still not very great. We engage in observation bias. We look at the smartest kid in the class. He is getting, let's say, in a mock of 198 marks, he ends up getting 102. And I end up getting only 40. And then, oh, he has 102. I have 40. All my efforts are wasted. But you never look at the kid. If I get 40 and I have another kid in the class who's got 20, you will never look at that kid, because we as human beings love to torture ourselves. Please understand the process. If you're at 40, that mock was useful for you. If you're at 102, that mock was useful for you. If you're at 20, that mock was useful for you. If you do the follow-up actions carefully. The follow-up actions are critical to the mock. You sitting through a test, you can randomly sit through an IIT JEE test as well. Those of us who are from commerce background, I can sit through an IIT JEE test as well. But then, I mean, there is no purpose for me sitting through an IIT JEE paper right now, because I'm not seeking admission into an engineering college, or it is not something that aligns with what I'm seeking to do with my life. The purpose is for me to get better. CAT marks, they are supposed to make you better, but the scores that you get in them is of very little purpose. Of course, create a test-like environment. A lot of us take mocks at our home. When we take mocks at our home, we have, uh, please do not do random disable annotation for others. And here are drawings. Okay. When we take mocks at home, we have water set in front of us. We have food available. Sometimes we are snacking while reading the. Please don't do any of that. Please make sure when you're taking the test, everyone in your house knows you're taking the test. Sounds cannot be controlled. Let sounds happen, because even on the actual CAT mock day, actual CAT exam day, you will have lots of people chattering around you. Sometimes your invigilators would be chattering around you. You would have, let's say, electricity going away, or it is going to be very cold. All sorts of funny things can happen on the test day. But you have to be in a zone. You have to reach a Zen-like state wherein all these external factors you don't pay attention to. The only thing that is for you is the screen and the pen and paper that you're holding. Follow the timed conditions. Don't take breaks after sections. Don't take breaks in middle of the paper. Even Diptavip, I think you would be better served watching that India-Pakistan match. No, please leave. There is absolutely no purpose for you being here. Please leave. So follow the time condition. If you have a 40-minute section, if you have a, let's say, 2-hour paper, whatever sort of paper you're going through, make sure you adhere to that entire timeline that they've given. Don't take breaks in between. Don't pause the test. Even if you have that functionality available, don't pause the test. Sit through it in entirety. Be very, very dedicated towards replicating the conditions that you're going to face in the test, and do that from the first test itself. Additionally, review instructions very carefully. Not so much in CAT, because the instructions are fairly straightforward. In small little exams like NMAT and SNAP, when you have questions on antonym and synonym and people end up marking the opposite thing, that is very, very painful, because that implies you know the meaning of the question. You could have solved it. What you missed out on was your attention there. Please don't do that. Stay focused for the entirety of the 2-hour duration. Use scratch paper. A lot of people use scratch paper, and a lot of people in this day and age, we have, just like I have this writing pad available with me, a lot of kids also have writing pads available with them now. Please don't solve questions on the screen. Solve it on a pen, solve it on a paper, solve it with a pen, because that is what you would replicate on the final exam day. Answer every question. This is post-test. This is post-test. Just because some question, as in you dislike an area, you dislike some topic, ये तो logs का सवाल है, ये तो मेरे को आता नहीं. मत छोड़ देना, solve it. Either you will realize whether the perceived weakness that you have, that is actually a weakness, or you would learn something new. But don't leave a question unattempted because it did not seem good. Review, analyze after the test is done. Of course, you should be analyzing everything. The analysis part of it is more to do with how can I improve rather than what this test was. Next, identify what works for you and what doesn't. This can perhaps only be done after you've taken, let's say, 10 to 12 mocks. Far too many people come up with far too many people come up with amazing insights about their mock taking abilities after having taken 2 mocks or 3 mocks, which is too small a sample space. Between 2 or 3 mocks, maybe the good thing that you did was useless, or maybe the bad thing that you did was an aberration. So unless you have like a significant enough sample space, 10 to 12 marks, start saying the areas that you usually tend to do well in. And arithmetic, if you're doing well, or if in algebra, functions based questions or series and sequences questions, you tend to miss out on being able to see second order APs or third order APs. Or for second order APs, when you have to come to an expression for summation, you tend to miss out on taking the constant part as 10n or whatever that constant part is. Maybe you'll not realize the example that I'm talking of, but what are the common errors you make? Understand in your CAT prep, or at least in your testing, if this is the gamut of errors that everyone in this world can make, and right now you have taken care of this portion, you don't make such errors. This is the kind of errors that you can make. In your mocks, the target is via your analysis, via your going through the test papers again, you have to reduce this gap to as low as possible. All the errors that you want to make, all the errors that you want to make, try to make them in mocks, however many times you can make them, so that on the actual exam day, you don't end up making stupid errors. You don't end up making errors that end up taking away marks, which you could have earned had you been a little more careful on the particular day. Finally, regardless of what you get marks, take mocks regularly. Let's say right now in the month of June, you're taking one mock every 2 weeks, or you're taking one mock every week. Regardless of the score you get, keep taking them throughout the duration, throughout the time you're going to appear for CAT. Don't stop taking mocks because it somehow emotionally upset you, because eventually mocks will upset you. Mocks are going to be emotionally damaging, and that is fine. But the ones who stop preparing, the ones who stop taking mocks, you're doing yourself more damage than the person who takes the next mock after, of course, having done the analysis. Simply taking a test is not enough. Doing these appropriate analysis after that is also extremely critical. Now, about the count of mocks or sectional tests to take, see, honestly, the answer is very, very subjective. For somebody who is preparing uh, for CAT from now, you will perhaps have, even if you rush at breakneck speed and you do all those things that are needed to cover for theory portion, you would have at best 1 to 1.5 months for mock testing. So at that time, even if you take like one mock per week or 2 mocks per week, you'll get to 10 to 12 mocks only. But in an ideal world, where you started preparing, let's say in the month of January, sometime in the month of January, or you have roughly 9 to 10 months of prep time put in, for those people, around 20 to 25 full-length mocks is great, and 10 to 15 sectional tests is great. Now, my own personal view on sectional tests is you should not start off by, as in, sectional tests are supposed to fine-tune your strategy only in a particular section. So don't expect if I take a sectional test in VA and I take a sectional test in DILR and I take a sectional test in Q1, I've taken a full mock. A full mock is a different beast. Sectional tests are a different beast. Sectional test is more nuanced, more directed towards working only on that section within that time frame of 40 minutes. A mock, because it is a 40-minute exam, your performance in the VA section, your performance in the DILR section is also going to impact your performance in the QA section. But when you're only taking the QA section, it is going to be a separate outcome altogether. So when you're doing sectional tests and when you're taking mock tests, don't expect 3 sectionals to be equivalent to a mock. 3 sectionals are separate, one mock is separate. In all, 30 to 40 mocks. And this number is being arrived at most of the good percentile getters. Most of the good percentile getters in the yesteryears have taken around 30 to 40 mocks. Most of the good percentile getters in the yesteryears have taken 30 to 40 mocks. Not to say each one of them has taken 30 to 40 mocks, because there are people who don't take a single mock, yet end up doing exceedingly well in the actual exam. There are people who have taken 5 marks, 10 marks, and yet end up doing exceedingly well. There are also people who've taken 70 plus marks and have done very poorly in the exam. It is not about the number of marks that you take, it is how much input you are putting in. You take the mark, you engage in the analysis, you identify what works for you, what doesn't work for you, what are your strong areas, what are your weak areas, and then you take the corrective action. Only then does your mock taking become useful. Otherwise, you simply sitting through a test, it could very well be us sitting through an IT or me sitting through an IT JE entrance paper. I'm fairly confident I would not be able to solve 10% of the questions, but I can, of course, sit through the entire process. That is a useless exercise for me to engage in. And last, when to start? This is my own personal opinion. At least, see, within quant, there are 5 different areas: numbers, arithmetic, geometry, modern maths. Within these, at least 3 of these topics should be done. Only then should you start taking marks. Prior to that, if you start taking marks, you will have an easy out for yourself always, stating that, oh, अभी तो मेरा ये topic नहीं हुआ ना, अभी तो मेरे से ये इतना हमने cover नहीं किया ना. Do any 3 out of them. Even, let's say, arithmetic, algebra tend to be the predominant areas that get tested in the recent years, okay? Even if you've done numbers, geometry, and modern math, you would be in a position to attempt at least 10 questions in the paper. After you reached a point where you should be able to attempt 10 questions in a paper, or not necessarily get them right, not necessarily mark the answer for them, but having some iota of sense of where it is coming from, what sort of working should be done, then you can start taking marks. You should not be attempting marks right at the beginning. One of the weirdest advice I've heard people get from toppers and these, let's say, come by the dozen influencers is right at the beginning, take a mock, see where your level is at. It will perhaps work for intelligent people, but for non-intelligent people, people who are preparing right from the absolute basic level, taking a mock right at the beginning is going to be a very, very damaging exercise, because you don't know the beast you're up against. But let's fight the beast first, see what our current levels are at. That level is usually going to be bad, and that is not a great outcome for you. Do some sort of initial work, then go face the beast, and then identify, okay, these are the areas I need to build up. So, number 1500 plus questions outside of class sheets. Again, this is a number I recommend for QA as well. As in, this is prior to you attempting the mock. Before your mock season starts, these are the targets that you should definitely be hitting. DILR, introduction to all basic variants. You should know all basic variants, as in games and tournaments, what is there, arrangements, what is there, tables, pie charts, approximations, and liar puzzles, binary logic, or even data sufficiency to an extent. All of these you should be familiar with. It shouldn't be as if somebody tells you, some games and tournament set, they talk of an upset and you're completely clueless what does an upset mean. That should not happen. If that happens, that basically translates into you don't know the rules of the game that you're playing, so you playing that game is going to be bad. Okay, and then of course additional practice, 200 sets, 200 plus sets. When I say outside of class sheets, I mean, see, when you're doing a class sheet, you're only going through the specific topic over and over again. When you do it outside of class sheet, your brain starts to fire in different directions in different ways. And then the likelihood of you being able to take a test when questions are not necessarily from a specific topic would be appropriate. Okay, for VARC, 200 RCs and 300 VA questions, 300 VA questions split in whatever way. Right now, I'm guessing we have lots of parajumble questions available. We have lots of summary questions available. We also have lots of odd one out questions available. But this new variant, FIB paragraph, where you have a entire paragraph and you have a sentence to be filled up somewhere in the paragraph, that a lot of practice material is not available for that. Yet, once you've gone through, let's say 300 odd questions, how that split happens, I leave that up to you. When you've done all this practice outside of classroom sheets, then you've reached a point where very few things you would not have seen. Maybe you've not mastered them, but it's not going to be like questions are going to puzzle you or questions are going to be surprising. Oh, ऐसे भी पूछ सकते हैं. Because all the extra practice that you've done, you are now ready for taking them. The above numbers advice is for the ideal case, of course. Again, somebody starting prep today, it is highly unlikely you will be able to hit these targets. It is highly unlikely you'll be able to hit these targets, but then you would have to take a judgment call on what your current preparation level is at, where you're planning to end it at, and then how would you go about doing whatever ratio you can do it in. But make sure you've practiced outside of classroom sheets, because classroom sheets, as wonderful as they are, they're supposed to be introductory. They're not supposed to be serving as getting you to a level where you can solve different ideas simultaneously. You need to engage in independent practice in order to be better. Because if a classroom sheet was enough, everyone who is present in the classroom or everyone who's solved the classroom sheet, they would score identically. That doesn't happen. It happens on account of the difference in score happens on account of the different levels that people had previously, and also all the extra independent practice that they are currently engaging in. The above numbers are prescriptive and always more the better, but not at the cost of genuine understanding. Now, see, when I give out such numbers, usually people end up doing, okay, I've done 60 from here, I've done 80 from here, I've done 90 from here. And instead of making sure that you're understanding the question and you're completing the idea, you're grasping the concept, people end up chasing after numbers. As in, I've done these many questions here, I've done these many questions. Please don't do that. Make sure you give every question its due respect. You end up giving every question its due respect. Understand from the question. Even if you've done, let's say, somebody who's done 100 questions with a lot of concentration is much better off than somebody who's done 2000 questions but has rushed through them without necessarily learning about the ideas they were getting it wrong at. So these numbers, they are prescriptive. These numbers are not to be hit at the cost of genuine understanding. Genuine understanding is priority. Even if you end up doing fewer number of questions, but with concentration, with understanding what is going on in them, then it is better than you having gone through 3000 questions or 5000 questions, but you're simply rushing through them without necessarily understanding what they are. Okay. Now, corrective action as a response to mock performance. Mock analysis. There is going to be an entire session of what all you can do in mock analysis. In case you are unwilling to wait and nahi mere ko abhi dekhna hai, on my YouTube channel, there is a separate playlist, how to analyze mocks. Within that, there is a Excel file that I have put down that you can download and you can utilize that. How to use that Excel file, all of that is given. Also, how to do the analysis for 3 different sections. What kind of errors can you make? Is there a conceptual error? Is there a careless error? If the conceptual error was on account of us misinterpreting something, or was it on account of us not having covered the topic? All those possibilities, all those variants are covered within those videos. So in case you are unwilling to wait, you can go ahead and watch those videos. Otherwise, if you wait, those sessions are also planned here. Emotional balance, true to my word, right from the first page to the last page, I can never get over the idea that far too many people get too emotionally invested in their mock scores. If you get a great score, you have work to do. If you get a bad score, you have work to do. Please maintain your emotional balance. People who are equanimous, people who take good scores and bad scores with, as in their attitude towards them is same, they tend to perform much better. Because remember, on the CAT day, a lot of people end up messing up their paper. A lot of people end up messing up their paper, not because they did not know, but because they got too stressed out. They place too much value on that particular day or that particular performance, which is not ideal. You need to be very, very calm while attempting. Not that you have to be dead, not that you have to be absolutely unemotional. If you do well, of course, you'll be happy. If you do bad, you will, of course, be sad. It is not the instant reaction you cannot control. The instant reaction will happen. But what you can indeed control, is the follow up to that initial reaction. Once that initial reaction has set in, okay, I've done well. But were there areas that I could do better at? Were there questions that I ended up making careless mistakes in? Okay, I did poorly. What are the areas I should focus on? What are the errors, common errors that I'm making? Are there any tendencies that are causing this drop in score for me? Let's say some people have a very seesaw sort of performance in mocks. In one mock, they do exceedingly well. In the next mock, they don't do that well. In the next mock, they do exceedingly well. In the next mock, they don't do well. Then you can perhaps look at the external factors that are affecting your affecting your performance. For one person, There is this wonderful insight for one former student. If he ate food prior to attempting a mock, he did not perform as well. But if he did not eat food, he waited for food consumption after the mock, he did comparatively better. Something of that sort also happens. I'm not saying, see, most likely it was something that was happening in his brain. It happened 2, 3 times and he believed it to be true. Because he started believing it to be true, then it worked for him. Then on the cat day, he did not eat anything, although it was his afternoon slot. He did not eat anything prior to cat. He did fairly well and he attributed it. See, all the input that all that he put in, all the work that he put in terms of the theory coverage, all the mocks that he'd taken, those were kept to the side. And what was given priority was uh, I did not eat food prior to my exam, and therefore it worked out well for me. Whatever works, chalega. But keep emotional balance. Don't be too saddened or too happy. Look for causes. Look for reasons rather than outcomes. It would be much better if you look for reasons. Always, it is better if you look for reasons, because then perhaps you can do something to rectify it. If you take it up as, oh, my life is so bad, then okay, life is so bad, but there is no follow-up action involved at all. Don't engage in score percentile comparison in two ways. Don't engage in score percentile comparison with other people. I did so well in this test, yet my score is not that high, or I've scored poorly, but this fellow has scored extremely well. Absolutely impertinent, because everyone is at a different race. Everyone is at an extremely different race. I am running a race in which I am looking to improve myself. Somebody scores a 40, somebody scores a 102. The 40 guy, he has to see what sort of errors he makes. The next test, his target need not necessarily be 50. If the test, let's say this test was difficult, he got 40. In the next test, it is easier. But if he's only targeting 50, then he's actually handicapping himself where he could have potentially scored 70. The target should always be, what can I do best in the next paper? What all errors I'm making, let me try to avoid all those errors and move on to my best performance in the paper, rather than I have to get to this score, I have to get to this percentile. Absolutely useless, especially in this beginning phase. And for tests other than CAT, NMAT and SNAP, see, CAT is good. CAT mock taking is going to be an extremely long process. CAT mock taking is going to be an extremely long process. Right from June to the month of November, you will have lots of mocks that you would take. When it comes to SNAP and NMAT, the number of mocks that you take are going to be fewer. And understand, the purpose there is going to be familiarity with the interface, familiarity with the pattern that crops up, rather than anything else. So when it comes to tests other than that, don't deep dive into, okay, I need to improve this, I need to improve that, I need to. The numbers that were mentioned were CAT mocks. For NMAT, if you're attempting it in October, the first month itself, if you've taken 5 to 6 mocks in NMAT, that is more than enough. But then if you're going to attempt it sometime, let's say in December, even then 5 to 6 is enough. But by that time, even if you've taken, let's say, at that time, make sure you take the more recent mocks, because usually with NMAT, what happens is after the first day, first slot is over, people end up, uh, people end up, uh, people end up doing a lot more of updating of mocks, and then the tests are more representative of what is coming in that year. It becomes more useful. Same is the case with SNAP mocks as well. Okay, that is all that I had to say on the issue. Hopefully you realize mocks are not a means to judge your worth as a candidate. Mocks are simply a means for you to identify where you're currently at. Please take mocks seriously. Please do not get emotionally severely impacted by mocks. Any other questions? There were lots of questions coming in chat. There were lots of questions coming in chat while I was talking about. Now, if you have any questions, please raise your hand. I will unmute you, and then we can engage in whatever questions you have. And if we don't have any questions, then I will go back to the initial list of things that people had talked of. Okay. So, fun thing, mock strategy. My input for you right now is be very, very, see, mock strategy is one of the biggest misnomers that happens in cat prep industry as a total. What works for you, what doesn't work for you, you would be able to identify that best. Please raise your hand and ask a question. Please raise your hand and ask a question. Because in chat, what would happen is you are asking me Ram, I will answer Rahim, and then it will not work. Yes, Muskan. Acha, you would not have the ability, no? Go on. Muskan, you can unmute yourself. Go on.
Yeah, hi. Thank you, sir.
Hmm.
Actually, I would like to ask, like, I have started the CAT preparation like 1 week prior only. So
Hmm.
first I need to complete the syllabus and then go for mocks, or
I
what?
answered that question. I answered that question here, Muskan.
Yeah,
At least 3 out of these topics you must have covered in class, done all that practice sheets that you get in your class, and then 1500 questions. This is my input on it. Right now, given that you started 1 week back, Acha, Muskan, given that you started 1 week back, mocks for you will perhaps start sometime around early October. Should ideally start for you sometime around early October, because right now, Acha, what is our background like? Have we taken IT JEE earlier?
yeah, I have taken, yeah.
Okay. And
But
were
that,
we, go on.
sorry, yes, sir. What you were saying?
I'm saying if you've taken IT JEE earlier, we have some idea of the online testing procedure. That is
Yeah,
great
I
for us.
have. Right, yeah.
That is great for us. But are we, as in right now, VARC and DILR would be new beasts that we have to handle. QA, not so much. I have no first-hand experience of what ITJ entails in QA, but I'm guessing there would be some overlap. But DILR and VARC would be perhaps newer beasts to handle. And are we aware of what gets tested there and what needs to be studied there?
Yeah, VARC and Quants is okay for me, but DILR I'm not able to solve like right now. So I was asking in the context, like you have written now that you have practiced 1500 plus questions. So I was asking that the solved questions which we watch on YouTube or some coaching center, that
Hmm.
needs to be counted, or accept that 1500 questions you are saying.
You
Like we
have
solve it,
practiced. You
yeah,
have practiced. If as
okay,
long as you
by
have
own.
solved it, if you have solved it by your own, it gets counted. After you having solved it, if you watch the solution, that is fine. But then you watching somebody doing a lot of
That
solving
is,
is not
uh-huh.
useful.
Right. So the October would be too late now for solve like mock thing.
See, Muskan, October would be too late, yes. But then that is a function of us having started cat prep also late, no? We
Yeah,
started in
that,
the month of June. So
yeah.
see, we can always make let's say we can always be sad about SRQ, or we can think of, okay, this is the current state of affairs that I have. These are the cards
Mhm.
that have been dealt. Let me try to make the best of whatever I have available in front of me. यही कर
Right.
सकते हैं.
So
उसका
can
दुख
I
नहीं
go
मनाएंगे.
for,
Hmm.
yeah, right. So can I go for sectional mocks, like if I study particular chapter or topic, then for that I can give the test.
So, framing it this way, can you go for sectional mocks? You can go for actual cat without taking a mock at all. But right now, if you take a mock without having covered the basic portion of the test,
Mhm.
are you really taking a mock? It's very much, I'm comparing it to, agar today I sit down and take an IT JEE ka entrance test, am I really taking a mock?
Yeah, right. I got your point. Actually, I gave two mocks and like I'm not able to solve a single question of DILR. So that's why I was worried. Like,
Don't, अरे ठीक है. Now you know you are not able to solve questions in DILR. That
mm-hmm.
means DILR needs extra work. In
Right.
VARC also, I'm guessing what was the outcomes? What were the outcomes in VARC?
VARC I'm able to solve. Like that was the like for after giving that two mocks, I was able to realize that VARC is something like I have good I'm not sure, but that two mocks were good for me with respect to VARC. But if I
दो
talk
तीन
about quants, it was average, like
दो
seven,
तीन
eight questions.
दो तीन मुद्दे. एक देख, यहाँ पे याद है हम बोल रहे थे, what works for
Mhm.
you, what doesn't work for you. Your
Works for
sample
you,
space
right?
is two tests.
After 10 to 12. Yeah, right. Huh.
The sample space is two tests. You're drawing inferences on two tests, which is
Yeah,
not ideal.
that's
अबे पहले
why.
अभी अभी ऑनेस्टली मॉक्स का थॉट ना दिमाग से निकालो. अभी जल्दी से भाग भाग के, आई डोंट नो इफ यू आर अटेंडिंग रिकॉर्डेड लेक्चर्स और इफ यू आर डूइंग थ्योरी लाइव क्लासेस जो भी है. If you have the possibility of going through your course content slightly quicker, do that first. Once that is taken care of, तब मॉक्स की चिंता करना. अभी मॉक्स की चिंता करना is as good as मेरी शादी नहीं है लेकिन मेरे बेटे का एडमिशन कौन से स्कूल में होगा उसकी चिंता कर रहे हैं. That comes much much later.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So like I need to go with the flow, like first syllabus thing, then certain questions, then after that mocks, right?
Ideally you should be trying to cover your syllabus first. That has to be the priority. Mocks and
Right, right.
sectionals comes after that. In the next, let's say if you're an extremely talented person and you're very smart and everything, let's say June or July, even if you rush through it, like the highest intellect person can do the cat syllabus part of it in 2 months. July end तक अगर सब कुछ खत्म कर सको तो best हो जाएगा. But then
No.
depending on where you lie on the intellect scale, it will
Yeah.
take you around 3 to 4 months. If it takes you 3 to 4 months, we are already in September. तो अक्टूबर की शुरुआत से टेस्ट देना चालू करेंगे. That is what my initial analysis
Right.
was on as well.
Actually, I'm working also na right now, so it's little tough for me to manage. That's why I, chose that this exam so late. I was not sure like I have to give this year or not, so that's why it's June now. Okay,
ऐसा
I'll.
either you can think of this as मेरे कैट
Mhm.
में बस 6 महीने बचे हैं, और you can think of
हाँ.
this as ये मेरा गैम्बल ईयर ही है. अगर इसमें अच्छा हो
Mm.
गया तो वंडरफुल, नहीं तो अगले साल का हार्डवर्क हम इसी साल डाल रहे हैं क्योंकि वर्किंग तो हम अगले साल भी रहेंगे.
Right, sir. Right.
टाइम का
हाँ.
कंस्ट्रेंट तो अगले साल भी रहेगा. सो
Right,
इफ आई
right.
पुट इन अ लॉट ऑफ एफर्ट दिस ईयर फॉर द नेक्स्ट साइकिल, आई वुड हैव अ लॉट ऑफ रॉ मटेरियल इन प्लेस ऑलरेडी व्हिच वुड हेल्प मी टू डू वेल नेक्स्ट ईयर. बेसिकली एफर्ट
Mhm.
मत कम करना. दैट इज द
Mm.
ओनली एडवाइस. Okay.
Yeah.
All the
Okay.
other people, whatever other
Thank you,
questions you
sir.
had,
Thank you.
lots of messages were sent in direct. Lots of direct messages were sent. I am not answering direct messages. Only questions. Please, if you have a question, raise your hand. Ask. I will answer them. Adi, whatever you get your hands on, time modules are great. Arun Sharma is great. What pick one and start solving. This is something we talked of in the one of the earlier sessions. What are the right resources वाले में? Far too many times people are judging between ये better है कि वो better है. एक उठाओ एक कर लो, वो better है rather than ये अच्छा है या वो अच्छा है. There are certain advantages in time modules. There are certain areas that they've gone into that is much much deeper than what Arvind Sharma sir's book has. Also, there are certain question variants present in Arvind Sharma sir's book which will never get asked in CAT because they are what I like to call mazduri questions, in which no insight is useful, but you have to go through the slow process. There was one question in which I had to list out all prime numbers from 1 to 200 in order to solve the question, which is a useless exercise. That such a question will never come in. But then me sitting here and saying ये मटेरियल अच्छा है वो मटेरियल, दोनों मटेरियल अच्छे, एक उठाओ कर दो, बस मुंडी नीचे करके कर दो. दैट इज गोइंग टू बी मच बेटर देन बीइंग इन अ स्टेट ऑफ लिम्बो कि ये करना है कि वो करना है. ओके. आई any other questions? If not, I will talk of this. Can we have some basic DILR conceptual lectures on DILR conundrum? No, Swarnim. Completely left field सवाल नहीं है भाई ये. No. Okay. I'll go through the answers for the questions that are present on the screen right now. Mock strategy का वहाँ पे, as in there is a playlist available. Within that, how to attempt, how to analyze, all of that is present. But I'll give like 2-liner opinions of them. Mock strategy, don't worry about mock strategy right now. Right now, simply go attempt test, try different things, see what works for you, what doesn't work for you. Don't get too bogged down by a good result, as in bad result, or don't get too happy with a good result, because right now we are so far off. We are so far off from the actual, let's say, the actual exam that right now finalizing something this much in advance is going to be a very, very stupid thing. Once you take 10, 15, let's say when you were playing cricket as a child, of course, on that day you were not deciding, oh, I will be an opening batsman, I will be an all-rounder, I will be a fast bowler. On the first day you're playing, you're simply playing. When you've played for a certain period of time, then you realize, okay, my skills lie here. This is what I can do better than others. So I will try to become better at this over and over again. The mock strategy part of it comes after you having taken, let's say, 15, 20 mocks. Then you identify, okay, this works for me. And then you check that strategy in 3, 4, 5 mocks and see if that identification that you've done is appropriate or not. Right at the beginning phase of you taking mocks, having an idea like mock strategy is absolutely a deterrent to you performing well. How to analyze? I cannot possibly go through the entire idea, because in analysis there are several steps involved, and that analysis also depends on how you attempted it. DILR section handling, read the question, solve the questions. Every section, read the question, solve the question. Don't waste too much time on a particular question. If the more you practice, the better you would be at solving questions in the exam, because uh, it is not so much the questions will repeat themselves, but there is going to be an iota of overlap between some idea being tested in the mock or practice set that you've gone through, and then the question that you get in the exam. For instance, last year's CAT paper, I think slot 2021, slot 20, I, people, do not. ये ज्ञान वाली बातें मत करो भाई. This Krishna's question is a valid question, and everyone, अगर हम लोग पैसे के लिए MBA नहीं कर रहे हैं, I'm not saying you should do CAT only for money. You can do several thousand things for money, but if somebody is doing CAT for money, that is not a bad thing. ये holier than thou वाला attitude मत उठाओ कि नहीं CAT for money कर रहे हैं. भाई हम भी कर रहे हैं. All of us are looking for better prospects in life. We want to provide for our family, and we want to get to a better place when it comes to financial freedom. He thinks that is best achieved by CAT, तो ठीक है, इसमें कोई दिक्कत नहीं है. लाइट लो, इतना ज्यादा मतलब ज्ञानबाजी मत करो. Because let's say if I was very good at acting, I would also do acting only. I would not teach for CAT. अगर उसमें पैसा ज्यादा मिल रहा होता तो. And whatever maximizes your earning potential. But then if it translates into, I want a lot of money, but I don't want to put in the hard yards, I don't want to do the work in order to get that money, तो फिर अलग ही चैलेंज है. मतलब नॉट ऑल ऑफ अस आर तुषार कपूर इन दिस वर्ल्ड ना, कि एक्टिंग हमें विरासत में मिली हुई और हमें मूवीज में रोल भी मिल जाएंगे. वैसी वाली जिंदगी नहीं है ना अपनी. मोस्ट ऑफ अस आर coming from not that privileged a background. All of us are privileged in certain ways, but we are not that privileged कि हमें बहुत सारी opportunities मिल जाएंगे. We are not अंबानी का बेटा, we are not huge people. So we identify what works for us and then we go all ham in that. अच्छा, here DILR section handling की बात थी. DILR section, देख, if you're randomly running from set to set, every मतलब you first thing you would have to do is engage in a lot of practice. जितनी ज्यादा सेट की प्रैक्टिस करेंगे उतना ज्यादा DILR सेक्शन हैंडल करने का स्कोप रहेगा. There are going to be exams जिसमें आपसे एक ही सेट सॉल्व होगा. There are going to be exams जिसमें आपसे 2 ही सेट सॉल्व होगा. There are going to be exams जिसमें आपसे 3 सेट सॉल्व हो जाएंगे. Don't expect your performance in one DILR section to get replicated in the next DILR section because you put in a lot of work. मतलब ये समझो, लास्ट ईयर के पेपर में I have definitely solved more than 500 DILR sets in the last cycle. लेकिन एक्चुअल कैट एग्जाम में फर्स्ट स्लॉट में मेरे से 2 ही सेट सॉल्व हो रहे थे, बाकी सेट सॉल्व नहीं हो रहे थे. तो 2 ही सेट सॉल्व हो रहे थे, ठीक है, 2 ही सेट चलेगा. बट देन अब उससे पिछले वाले साल में मेरे से 3 सेट सॉल्व हो रहे थे, उससे पिछले वाले साल में मेरे से 4 सेट सॉल्व हो रहे थे. इट इज नॉट अबाउट कि एक रामबाण तरीका कि आज के बाद मेरे से DILR पूरा पूरा सॉल्व होने लग जाएगा. इट इज when you cannot guarantee a score in a cricket match, but you can give yourself the best chance of making a good score by engaging in a lot of practice, engaging in good habits, diet अच्छी रखेंगे, sleep बढ़िया से लेंगे. Similarly DILR के अंदर the decision making part of it, अच्छा इस सेट को इतना टाइम दिया, इसके अंदर इतना कुछ दिख गया, now should I invest more time in it or should I move on? Those habits need to be built up in order to do well, and that is not just true for DILR section, that is true for all sections. I will बस यही था मेरा एडवाइस फॉर दैट. VARC section daily reading is good if you have time for it. Yes, Abhishek.
हाय सर.
Go on.
सर बेसिकली अभी जो डीएलआर के सेक्शनल्स ले रहा हूँ मैं,
हम्म.
तो उसमें बहुत बार ऐसा हो जाता है कि जैसा मैंने आइडेंटिफाई किया चारों सेट पढ़ के कि ये सेट मुझसे हो जाएगा, और मैं उसको करने के लिए गया एंड मान लीजिए सर 25 मिनट लग गया और फिर वो हो गया.
हम्म.
अब मुझे ये नहीं पता कि चारों
अच्छा
सवाल.
अच्छा अच्छा अच्छा. तो अब देखते हैं, एक जजमेंट का पैरामीटर यही नहीं है कि मेरे से हो जाएगा कि नहीं. जजमेंट का पैरामीटर ये भी है, मेरे से कितनी देर में होगा. हाउ मच मोर टाइम वुड आई नीड टू सॉल्व दिस. Do we engage in that? Let's say I've read a set for first 3-4 minutes. I've made the basic skeletal structure of how data has to be recorded. At that time, do I also come up with an estimate of how much time it would take me to solve the set?
सर अभी तो नहीं, अभी तो बस मतलब करने पे.
तो फिर दिस इज आवर सब्सिक्वेंट कोर्स ऑफ एक्शन. जब हम सेट सॉल्व कर रहे हैं, हम प्रेडिक्शंस कर रहे हैं कि भाई ये मेरे से हो जाएगा कि नहीं. राइट नाउ यू आर डूइंग बाइनरी आउटकम ना, ये मेरे रेंज में है, ये मेरे से सॉल्व हो जाएगा, ये मेरे से सॉल्व नहीं होगा. यू हैव टू ऐड अ पैरामीटर, ये मेरे से कितनी देर में सॉल्व होगा. यू विल नेवर रीच अ पॉइंट वेयर योर प्रेडिक्शंस आर गोइंग टू बी 100% एक्यूरेट. But unless you engage in this prediction mechanism, most cases में, let's say you spent 25 minutes on this question, क्योंकि कैट के पेपर में यूजुअली इन द 4 सेट्स दैट दे गिव, कैट के पेपर में जो 4 सेट रहते हैं, एक सेट होता है इंसेनली लेंदी, बहुत ज्यादा समय डुबाने वाला, 2 सेट होता है ठीक ठाक, और एक सेट होता है थोड़ा लाइट सा. दे हैव वन इजी, टू मॉडरेट, वन डिफिकल्ट. यही स्प्लिट रख रहे हैं एटलीस्ट 2021 के कैट से, पिछले 3 साल के कैट में यही स्प्लिट रख रहे हैं. नाउ लेट्स से यू पिक अप द लेंदी सेट और तेरे को दिख गया उसके अंदर क्या काम करना, और उसके अंदर तुमने 25 मिनट लगा दिए. नाउ उस 25 मिनट या 30 मिनट लगाने के बाद अब दूसरा सेट करने का तुम्हारे पास टाइम नहीं बचा, वर्सेस समबडी हु पिक्ड अप लेट्स से एन इजी सेट एंड अ मॉडरेट सेट, और उसने 2 सेट कर दिए. सवाल पे वेटेज तो बराबर ही है. सो इवन व्हेन यू रीच्ड अ पॉइंट वेयर आई कैन सॉल्व 4 सेट्स, यू आल्सो हैव टू आइडेंटिफाई इनमें से कौन सा सेट पहले उठाना. वी कैन नॉट पॉसिबली गेट इनटू, अच्छा हम कर सकते हैं तो अभी हम करेंगे. व्हेन इट इज प्रैक्टिस, तब अगर हम सेट कर सकते हैं तो हम करेंगे. बट व्हेन इट इज मॉक टेकिंग, अगर ये सेट कर सकते, इन दोनों में से विच विल गिव मी बेटर रिटर्न्स ऑन टाइम, उसके हिसाब से आगे का काम होना चाहिए. ओके.
ठीक है सर.
ठीक है. DNP46 कृष्णा वाला जो सवाल है उसका, आई एम नॉट रियली श्योर इफ आई शुड ऑप्ट फॉर कैट 2024. आई एम ऑलरेडी गेटिंग earning equal to what I would earn after passing from any IIM. As for networking, I already am working with almost every big shot from the startup ecosystem. Why MBA? I feel that I'm coming under the trap of just social validation, which I will get after getting IIM and nothing else. एक बहुत प्यारी चीज कृष्णा, मतलब हाँ, ऑनेस्टली हमने तुम्हारा पहले मैसेज पढ़ा नहीं था पूरा, बस नीचे का यू आर डूइंग कैट फॉर मनी वाला पोर्शन पढ़ के हम हिल गए थे. क्यों भाई, करते लोग ऐसे के लिए करते हैं. If you're seeking social validation, the biggest social validation in our world is the income that you generate. ये समझ, हिमेश रेशमिया का जितना भी लोग गाने का मजाक उड़ा लें, द फैक्ट दैट ही इज अर्नड मिलियंस अपॉन मिलियंस अपॉन मिलियंस, उसको सारी सोशल वैलिडेशन मिल गई है. राहुल गांधी को जितना भी हम लोग, मतलब आई एम श्योर राहुल गांधी के ऊपर मीम्स एंड जोक्स आर वेरी पॉपुलर, बट राहुल गांधी का नेटवर्थ हम सबसे ज्यादा है. तो राहुल गांधी इज डूइंग वेल इन हिज लाइफ. इस सब का लोड नहीं है. इफ यू थिंक यू आर अर्निंग सिग्निफिकेंटली वेल इनफ राइट नाउ, एंड doing an MBA does not really add value in terms of monetary income or in terms of the nature of the work that you want to engage in, मत करो. There is, मतलब एक था बच्चा 2 साल पहले, he was a software developer या कुछ था अजीब सा. भाई ने 4-5 साल में जॉब स्विच कर करके कुछ 96 LPA की उसकी सैलरी बढ़ गई थी. और उसके बाद उसका आ रहा था हालत कि भाई मेरे को ये लेना चाहिए कि नहीं, मेरे को अच्छा ही इज लेफ्ट, बट ठीक है, फॉर अदर पीपल मेरे को शिलोंग लेना चाहिए कि नहीं. उन्होंने भाई शिलोंग में ना तेरा हाईएस्ट पैकेज भी मैच नहीं करेगा, करना क्यों है तेरे को. तो उसका भी था कीड़ा नहीं. इट वाजंट सोशल वैलिडेशन दैट ही वाज सीकिंग. ही वांटेड टू गेट इनटू ABC बिकॉज हिज एकेडमिक रिकॉर्ड वाज नॉट दैट ग्रेट. तो उसको आ नहीं सकता था A या B से कॉल. द ओनली चांस दैट ही हैड वाज विद C, और सी के अंदर ही 99.65. ही डिड नॉट गेट अ कॉल फ्रॉम कैलकाटा. शिलोंग विलोंग तक हालत आ गई थी. ही डिसाइडेड नॉट टू ज्वाइन. दैट इज परफेक्टली ऑलराइट. देख, अभी ना ऑनेस्टली यंग पीपल के साथ थोड़ा सा थॉट रहता है. वी थिंक द पाथ टू सक्सेस इज वेरी यूनिटरी. यहाँ से वहीं जाना है. एंड आई एम नॉट सेइंग इट इज बैड, आई एम सेइंग इट इज अ प्रोडक्ट ऑफ द एज दैट वी आर. हम सबको लगता है कि भाई ऐसे ही सक्सेस आ सकता है और कोई तरीके से आता है. बहुत सारे डिफरेंट तरीके सक्सेस के. देयर वाज अ किड. एक प्यारा सा इंटरव्यू एक्सपीरियंस सुनाते हैं. एक बच्चा था, उसने कैट वैट की तैयारी करी, 99.28 कुछ परसेंटाइल आया था, एंड ओबीसी कोटा से था. आई एम कैलकाटा का इंटरव्यू था. एंड उसने इंटरव्यू के टाइम तक उसके पास ही हैड नो गोल. उसकी जिंदगी में कोई गोल था नहीं कि भाई क्यों करना है मेरे को एमबीए, एब्सोल्युटली नथिंग है. तो जब इंटरव्यू प्रेप चल रही थी तो बोला भाई कुछ तो सोचना पड़ेगा, देयर हैज टू बी सम नेचर ऑफ वर्क दैट यू एक्चुअली एंजॉय एंड यू वांट टू गो फॉर. फिर उसने क्या किया, ही केम फ्रॉम भिवानी, सम प्लेस इन हरियाणा. भिवानी भिवाड़ी, वन ऑफ दीज टू प्लेसेस. फिर उसने वहां पे जाके थोड़ा रिसर्च किया. देन ही सॉ देयर वाज एन अपॉर्चुनिटी, एज इन ही मेड अ बिजनेस प्लान, अ नोशनल बिजनेस प्लान ओनली ऑन पेपर. नोशनल बिजनेस प्लान ओनली ऑन पेपर, कि भाई किस तरीके से हम ये इंडियन स्नैक्स का बिजनेस सेटअप करेंगे और हम फ्रेंचाइजीज रखेंगे. वन ऑफ द बिगेस्ट एक्सपेंसेस दैट यू हैव फॉर putting out food is the restaurant rent cost. So he came up with a design for a cart जिससे फ्रैंकी और वड़ा पाव एंड दिस एंड दैट सब कुछ बेचना बेचना चालू करेंगे. he made a plan and he had not even an iota of an, मतलब हल्का सा भी उसका मन नहीं था कि इस प्लान पे हम एक्शन करेंगे. बट ही पुट इन अ लॉट ऑफ वर्क. बहुत सारा उसने मेहनत किया उस पर, बहुत सारा उसने रिसर्च किया, सब कुछ किया, ओनली फॉर द पर्पस ऑफ द इंटरव्यू. ही वेंट टू द कैलकाटा इंटरव्यू. कैलकाटा के अंदर पूछा क्यों करना है एमबीए. उसने बताया मेरा ये बिजनेस प्लान है, मेरे को ये करने के लिए ये चाहिए वो चाहिए. लोगों ने सारी बातें बातें सुनी, सब कुछ किया. at the end of the interview, one of the interviewers gave him his card. भाई अच्छा, यू ऑल द प्लान्स दैट यू टॉक्ड ऑफ, ये बहुत बढ़िया, ये सब कुछ अच्छा है, सब कुछ बढ़िया चल रहा है, चलेगा. ही केम बैक फ्रॉम द इंटरव्यू वेरी हैप्पी कि भाई हमने इतना इंप्रेस कर दिया इंटरव्यूअर को, उसने मेरे को कार्ड दे दिया. लेकिन again, if you are aware of the interview process, the interviewers, where they can tell you their names, they're not supposed to reveal details about them. The fact that he got a card, he had access to the phone number of the interviewer now, it meant he was rejected. He is not securing admission there, which is an indicate, मतलब इतना ज्यादा अच्छा बिजनेस प्लान था. they said भाई नहीं ले रहे तेरे को, क्योंकि यू आर ऑलरेडी एट दैट पॉइंट, इफ यू नीड एनी हेल्प विद दिस वेंचर करके कार्ड दिया था. इवेंट टू, उसके बाद जिसका कैलकाटा का इंटरव्यू हुआ, कोझिकोड का इंटरव्यू था. इन द कोझिकोड इंटरव्यू ही डेलिबरेटली ट्रिप्ड अप ऑन अ फ्यू डिटेल्स अबाउट द बिजनेस प्लान. व्हेन द रिजल्ट्स केम आउट, कोझिकोड में उसका हो गया, कैलकाटा में उसका नहीं हुआ. कोझिकोड में उसका हो गया, कैलकाटा में उसका नहीं हुआ. एंड नाउ एट दिस पॉइंट समझना उसका डाइवर्सन. ही थॉट अभी हम कोझिकोड जा सकते हैं, बिकॉज दैट इज व्हाट ही वाज प्रिपेयरिंग फॉर द एंटायर ईयर, उसको करने जाना था. और द बिजनेस प्लान दैट आई वर्कड फॉर 2 months was so great that an IIM professor has given me his card. The panel, after my answering, has decided not to grant him admission because मेरा इतना अच्छा गया काम. He decided to forgo his admission into Kozhikode. He set up his own business, and then within, let's say, 14 months, वो महीने का, मतलब महीने का 35 लाख कमा रहा था. The last time I had talked to him was sometime in 2018. वो महीने का 35 लाख उस टाइप पे कमा रहा था. Now, do you think he should have gone on to do an MBA? करता तो ठीक था, नहीं करता तो भी ठीक था. It is not about the MBA right now, given that we have been brought up in Indian mindset वाले households. Path to success seems very limited. कि भाई या तो डॉक्टर बनेंगे, या तो इंजीनियर बनेंगे, या तो एमबीए करेंगे, या तो सीए बनेंगे. यही सब स्टैंडर्ड रास्ते दिखते हैं. उसके अलावा भी बहुत रास्ते हैं. Right now, this process of CAT prep, this process of going through all the maturation that you're going through, is going to be about identifying what works for you. अभी ये समझो, तुम्हें लगता है ना बी स्कूल जाने के बाद सारी जिंदगी अच्छी हो जाएगी. मोस्ट बी स्कूल्स, प्रीमियर बी स्कूल्स के 1 साल ग्रेजुएट करने के बाद मोर देन 50% ऑफ द बैच हैज आइदर क्विट देयर जॉब और स्विच देयर जॉब्स. क्योंकि राइट नाउ द माइंडसेट इज पैसा 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 पैसा. एंड यंग पीपल का माइंडसेट वो रहता है बहुत अच्छी बात है, चलेगा. आई एम, मतलब मेरे को याद है, मेरे को अपने बचपन में यही चाहिए था, भाई मेरे से कोई 20 घंटे काम करा ले, हम काम करने को तैयार है, बस पैसा मिल जाए. फिर एट अ लेटर पॉइंट ऑफ टाइम ले लो, नहीं भाई जिंदगी में थोड़ा चैन चाहिए, थोड़ा सा अपने लिए समय चाहिए. आई वॉन्ट टू डू एक्टिविटीज आउटसाइड ऑफ ऑफिस एज वेल. Some people are driven that way, some people are not driven that way. Abhi most of us would not even recognize what category of worker we fall into. So right now, while we are preparing for CAT, when we are doing an MBA, when we are maturing, we are simply discovering more about ourselves. So don't let's say somebody else's intention of getting a lot of money is bad, or don't say नहीं मेरे को networking करना है, कुछ नहीं करना है किसी को अभी अभी तो figure out ही कर रहे हैं. For most of us right now, I'm guessing, let's say of the 10 people in this meeting, there is me and there is वो चला गया क्या अपना आदमी, but ठीक है, the person who was supposed to be hosting this, he is not here anymore. But rest of us, I'm guessing, a lot of us wouldn't really know what we want to do with after an MBA, and that is fine. That is not a bad thing. But even when you don't know what you want to do, if you've chosen to take up the CAT route, इसमें जान लगा देते, इसमें जान लगा देते. Either it works out great here, or we develop the skills of discipline, or we develop the skill of identifying what works for us, what doesn't work for us. क्या भारत के अंदर सबसे बड़ी लड़ाई थी ना, जनसंख्या इतनी ज्यादा है, रिगार्डलेस ऑफ व्हाट पाथ यू टेक, कंपटीशन इमेंस रहेगा. जब कंपटीशन इमेंस रहेगा तो फिर यू कैन नॉट अफोर्ड टू बी यार थोड़ा सा यहाँ पे लाइट्स लेते हैं, यहाँ पे थोड़ा सा मजे करते हैं. एक किड था मेरे वीटा 1 में, he got some 98.92% right, उसका MDI हुआ, उसने लाइट लिया, and then he went on to become a videographer for some YouTube channel. उसके अभी रिसेंट में उसने मैसेज किया वापस से कि अभी उसने SBI एज अ प्रोबेशनरी ऑफिसर ज्वाइन कर लिया है, क्योंकि SBI के ही वर्क आवर्स ऐसे मिल रहे उसको, एज इन गवर्नमेंट नौकरी, घर वालों ने उसकी जान खा ली थी, SBI का PO ज्वाइन कर रहा है, और उसके बाद सो दैट ही हैज टाइम फॉर हिज यूट्यूब वाला वीडियोग्राफी वाला काम. ही डिड नॉट, अच्छा कॉमर्स बैकग्राउंड का था, एकदम ही कॉलेज में था लड़का, 98.92 था, तो इट्स नॉट लाइक ही डिड पुअरली इन कैट, बट ही हैज नॉट टेकन अ सब्सिक्वेंट कैट अटेम्प्ट एट ऑल बिकॉज ही रियलाइज्ड ये रास्ता मेरे लिए नहीं है. दैट इज फाइन. डोंट बी टू हार्ड ऑन योरसेल्फ एट दिस पॉइंट ऑफ टाइम. बहुत 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 जिंदगी बाकी है भाई लोग, अभी बहुत करना होगा. अच्छा लास्ट चीज, बंद कर रहे हैं मीटिंग अब, क्योंकि मेरा 10 बजे से अगला क्लास भी है मेरे कोर्स वाले बच्चों के साथ. अभी जाओ, हम खाना वाना खाएंगे. गो होम, स्लीप, हैव फन. ओके बाय बाय बाय. आई थिंक क्लाउड रिकॉर्डिंग मेरे में हो रही है कि उसमें हो रही है, आई हैव एब्सोल्युटली नो क्लू, लेकिन कहीं पे तो होगी. बाय बाय.